Weeks continued to pass quietly within the cult, with no signs of Muzan, Kokushibo, or Akaza making any sort of unwelcoming appearance. My eyes had fluttered open from a nap Douma and I were taking together. Normally, it would just have been me that would rest, since Douma had completely forgotten how to do so, since he had been a demon for so long. He would simply lie there and hold me, keeping me company. But when I glanced at his face, his eyes were closed and his face was calm, as I watched his chest steadily rise and fall with each breath he took, admiring the peace between us. I nuzzled my head back into his shoulder, softly smiling at the feeling of the butterflies flying around in my stomach. All my worries and anxieties seemed to vanish as I went right back to sleep for a little while longer. I woke up later to see Douma twirling around a strand of my hair between his fingers, his eyes lost in thought until he realized I had woken up. "Hey there," he said with a cheeky smile. "Want to go out to the city for a bit? There's a lantern vendor with something that I have been interested in." Sure," I told him, happy to get out of the cult and get some fresh air. The weather was starting to get cool and the evening was light and refreshing. I stayed inside as much as possible, wanting to avoid any more interaction with the lovely upper rank one stalker. Also, the more I stayed inside, the lower of an urge I'd get to be in the sun. I hadn't stepped outside 1 foot since the day I found out. I was unsure why I hadn't, since I knew I could. It felt strange, though, to be able to withstand the sun, and even though I craved the warmth rays on my skin, it just felt wrong. I got myself ready for the evening out while Douma did his last-minute things around the cult. I didn't usually get myself dolled up, but I decided tonight, since I had some time. "Don't you look pretty as ever?" Douma said as he peeked his head in the door, making me blush. "Are you just about set?" he asked, his eyebrows softly raised on one side. "Yeah, I'm ready." I sprayed some light perfume and walked over to him. I shut the door behind me, and with my hand in his, we made our way out of our home. The red light district was a bustling mess, per usual, with drunk men chasing young women around and vendors covered with party of the town. The stench of alcohol was overwhelming, but I simply tried to ignore it and make the best of the situation. "Stay close to me, darling," Douma said as he extended his elbow out to me so that I could lock my arm with his. I scanned the people in search for anyone I may recognize that could spell some bad news, but no one stood out. "Just enjoy your time, Yen," I thought to myself, feeling foolish for worrying so much when I told myself I would stop. I wiped away any fearful memory I had of any demons and continued to walk through the bright-colored streets of the entertainment district. Douma did a good job, as always, attracting guests to the cult, so here and there he would stop and invite the more desperate-looking ones. He had a way with convincing people that this was the way their lives were meant to go. Deep down inside, I felt bad for the soon-to-be victims, but I had grown so used to it that it had no meaning to me on the matter as I could. Although what traveled through my brain was a gut feeling someone I didn't want to see around. I scanned towards the crowd, but didn't see anything suspicious. My gut told me it was Kokushibo, but I couldn't be for sure. I was just expecting him to pop out at some point. Nonetheless, I glanced at Douma, wondering if he had felt the same, but he was just charming and cheery as ever. Towards the end of the red light district was the lantern venue Douma was telling me about earlier. "You know the moon festival is soon, remember?" Douma asked me. I had completely forgotten. My mind flashed back to Kaneo and how he and I had a date planned for one back in my hometown before I turned into a demon. Oh, to be completely honest, I had forgotten, I said, trying to sound innocent. We need some lanterns for the entrance of the cult. The festival always brings in lots of new followers. Do you mind picking them out for me, my love? You do have better taste, he commented, making me giggle because Douma was a lot more gaunty and flashy than I was, but his genuine want for my input made me feel appreciated. I picked out a couple of lanterns that I thought would look good with the front of the cult, and then I let Douma pick out the rest. He paid the shop owner, who was very gracious for a large purchase, and we set back into the city and back to the cult. I had finally relaxed and forgotten about the old feeling I had gotten moments earlier, as Douma and I walked hand in hand, talking and laughing about silly things. So, seconds later, he and I froze in our tracks, our laughing expressions quickly distorting. Kogashibo stepped 1 foot in front of us, between the crowd of drunks and women. It's over. He knows. Kogashibo spoke, and disappeared as quickly as he appeared. My hand squeezed Douma's as tight as it could. My vision blurred and my thoughts turned mush. I didn't know what to think or feel. Everything I had assumed was wrong, and my feelings about being followed were right. My hopes were shattered. There was nowhere to run. Suddenly, I felt Douma pushing me. My legs simply followed since the shock made me lose control over them. He pushed me into an alley, away from everyone, gripping onto my shoulder and trying to get me to snap out of it. Let's get out of here, Douma said, his eyes full of terror like I had never seen before. This was bad, and his expression only terrified me more. Douma, I said, still a little slightly dazed. He seemed flustered as the fact I had no control of my body. He grabbed a hold of my hand and tried to pull my limp, depressed body up. We have to go now, he yelled, losing his temper due to his fear. Douma, what, Yin? We don't have time, he continued to yell. The only way to escape this is to turn back into a human, I said quietly, my tears brimming my eyes once more. He looked at me, desperately trying to make sense of the words that I'd just spoken. He looked like he wanted to argue, like he wanted to punch the whole thing through the building I laid up against. What are you even talking about? He began to say, but he lost it. Tears filled his eyes quicker than they had mine. I saw them begin to fall from his eyes before he buried his face into his slender hand, began to sob. He let his body fall onto me, as if he had given up too. I can't lose you, he said, muffled between his hands. His sobs made me come to terms with reality. We needed to get out of here. Douma, the only choice I have is to turn into human again, I said as I pulled his body away from mine so that he'd look at me in the eyes. He will kill you for sure. Muzan is ruthless, he disperted. Also, how would we be able to see each other? How can you even turn back? I know someone, I said bluntly. What about us? He asked. I could feel his heart breaking in front of me, his cold heart that I had treated so gently. The last thing I had ever wanted is to be apart from him. But with my next words, I'd find out if he was willing to do everything he could to keep us together. Turn back into a human with me, Douma.